I came home one afternoon, and my heart sank. The room I had slept in for decades, the one filled with my memories, had been emptied out. My daughter had turned it into her new gym, as if I no longer existed. At first, I just stood there in silence, stunned and humiliated. But then, something inside me shifted. If she thought she could erase me that easily, she had no idea who she was dealing with, so I decided to strike back. But not where she expected. My revenge came from the last place she'd ever imagined. My name is Jim Jones. I'm 66 years old, and today I want to show you how even betrayal inside your own home can be turned into dignity, justice, and a lesson that changes everything. Before I reveal how it all unfolded, I just ask one thing: hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to the moment I opened that door and realized my daughter had replaced me with dumbbells. It was a Tuesday afternoon in September, one of those crisp Michigan days when the leaves were just starting to hint at autumn. I'd been at the VA hospital for my routine checkup, same appointment I'd kept every 3 months since my retirement from the Army Corps of Engineers. The drive home through our quiet suburban neighborhood of Grand Rapids felt peaceful, familiar. I was looking forward to settling into my recliner, maybe reading another chapter of that World War II biography I'd been working through. The house looked normal from the outside. The same red brick colonial I'd bought with my late wife, Margaret, 42 years ago. The same oak tree we'd planted when Emma was born, now towering over the front yard. The same American flag I raised every morning at exactly 0700 hours, a habit that drove my daughter crazy, but one I'd never break. I parked in the driveway, grabbed my keys, and walked up the familiar concrete steps I'd poured myself back in 1983. The front door opened to the sound of electronic music thumping from upstairs. Emma's workout playlist, no doubt. At 32, she'd become obsessed with fitness, constantly posting videos of herself exercising to her social media followers. It paid the bills, I suppose, though I never quite understood how flexing muscles for strangers translated into income. "I'm home," I called out, hanging my Veterans Administration cap on the hook by the door. No response, just the continued thudding of bass and what sounded like weights being dropped repeatedly. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees reminding me of all those years carrying heavy equipment through construction sites. The hallway felt different somehow, brighter than usual. As I approached my bedroom, the door I'd painted forest green just last spring, I noticed something was wrong. The door was wide open. My bedroom door was never wide open during the day. I stepped into the doorway and felt the world tilt beneath. My feet, my room was gone. Not just rearranged, gone. Where my bed had stood for 20 years, there was now a bench press. Where Margaret's vanity had held her perfume bottles and jewelry box, now sat a rack of dumbbells arranged by weight. My dresser, the oak one my father had built in 1968, had been replaced by mirrors covering an entire wall. The carpet we'd chosen together in 2019, a deep burgundy that Margaret said reminded her of autumn leaves, had been torn up and replaced. With black rubber gym mats, even the walls looked different. Emma had painted over the soft blue Margaret had selected during her final months, when she was too weak to do much but plan home improvements from her hospital bed. Now the walls were stark white, with motivational quotes in bold black letters. No excuses. Pain is weakness leaving the body, stronger than yesterday. But what broke my heart wasn't just what was missing. It was what she'd thrown away. Gone was the cedar chest where I kept Margaret's letters from our courtship. Gone was the bookshelf that held my collection of military histories and my grandfather's. Purple Heart citation. Gone was the nightstand where I kept the last photo Margaret and I took together at our 40th anniversary dinner just months before her diagnosis. I stood in that doorway for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, taking in the complete erasure of my existence in this house. Every trace of Jim Jones, every memory of Margaret, every connection to the life we'd built together, all of it swept away to make room for Instagram-worthy workout equipment. "Oh, good. You're home." Emma's voice came from behind me, breathless. From exercise. I turned to see her standing in the hallway, wearing one of those expensive athletic outfits that seemed to cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail, not a strand out of place, despite having just finished what appeared to be an intense workout. "Emma," I said, my voice coming out rougher than I intended, "what happened to my room?" She wiped her face with a designer towel that probably cost $50. "I've been meaning to talk to you about that, Dad. I really needed the space for my home gym. You know how important my fitness content is for my brand." Her brand. Everything was about her brand these days. But where are my things? My furniture, Margaret's. Oh, I donated most of it to Goodwill. That old stuff was just taking up space. And honestly, Dad, it was pretty outdated. I kept a few things I thought might have sentimental value in a box in the basement. A box in the basement. 43 years of marriage, 20 years of memories, reduced to a box in the basement. Emma, that was my bedroom. Those were my belongings. You can't just... Dad, let's be practical here. She adjusted her sports bra with the casualness of someone discussing the weather. You're getting older, and the basement guest room is actually better for you. It's closer to the bathroom, and you won't have to climb stairs as much. Plus, this room has the best lighting for filming, and the space is perfect for my equipment. The basement guest room. The same damp, cramped space we'd always reserved for storage, and the occasional overnight guest who didn't mind the musty smell and the sound of the furnace cycling on and off all night. Besides, she continued, already walking back toward her new gym, it's not like you really use this room for anything important. You just sleep and read those boring war books. I'm actually generating income up here, building my business. This is an investment in our future. Our future. As if my displacement was somehow a family decision we'd made together. I watched her disappear, back into what used to be my sanctuary, heard the music resume, felt the house shake slightly as she returned to dropping weights on the floor, where Margaret and I used to whisper goodnight to each other every evening for 2 decades. Standing there in that hallway, looking into a room that no longer knew my name, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Margaret's funeral. Complete and utter abandonment. But underneath that grief, something else was stirring, something that had been dormant since my retirement, since I'd decided to be the agreeable father, the accommodating widower, the man who didn't make waves. If Emma thought she could erase me from my own home, reduce me to a basement dweller while she built her empire on the ashes of my memories, she was about to learn something about her old man that she'd clearly forgotten. I may be 66 years old, but I was a combat engineer. For 30 years, I specialized in building things that last and removing obstacles that shouldn't be there, and Emma had just become an obstacle. The basement guest room smelled like defeat and mildew. I sat on the edge of the narrow twin bed Emma had graciously provided for my transition, staring at the concrete walls that were now supposed to frame my golden years. The ceiling was so low I could touch it standing flat-footed, and every few minutes the furnace would kick on with a mechanical groan that sounded like the house itself was suffering. Above me, the electronic music thumped steadily, punctuated by the crash of weights and Emma's occasional workout grunts. The sound traveled through the old floorboards like artillery fire, a constant reminder that my daughter was literally dancing on my grave. I'd found the box she mentioned, tucked behind the water heater like an afterthought. Inside, thrown together, without care, were the fragments of my life she deemed worthy of preservation. Margaret's favorite coffee mug, the blue one with the chip on the handle that she refused to let me throw away. A handful of photographs, including our wedding picture, and a few shots of Emma as a child. My Purple Heart and Bronze Star from Vietnam, medals that had taken me 40 years to feel comfortable displaying. At the very bottom, wrapped in one of Margaret's old scarves, I found our anniversary watch. She'd given it to me for our 25th, a Timex with an inscription on the back, "Time means nothing when I'm with you. Love always, M." I held it in my palm, remembering how proud she'd been to present it to me, how she'd saved up for months to afford it. Emma had thrown it in the box like costume jewelry. I spent that first night in the basement, listening to the house settle around me, feeling like a ghost haunting his own life. Sleep came in fragments between the creaking pipes and the distant sound of Emma's late-night phone calls to friends, regaling them with stories about her amazing new gym setup and how she'd finally got Dad situated in a more appropriate space. More appropriate, as if 43 years of home ownership had been some kind of misunderstanding. The next morning, I climbed the stairs to find Emma in the kitchen, photographing her breakfast for social media. She'd arranged sliced avocado and organic eggs on a plate in an artful pattern, adjusting the lighting with professional precision. "Morning. Dad," she said without looking up from her phone. "There's coffee if you want some. I'm trying to get this shot perfect for my Wellness Wednesday post." I poured myself a cup from the pot, noting that she'd switched to some expensive organic blend that tasted like burnt grass. Margaret and I had been Folgers people for 4 decades. Simple, reliable, affordable. "Emma, we need to talk about what happened yesterday. Can it wait? I'm losing the good light." She held up her phone, snapping photos from different angles. "My followers love authentic morning content, and this lighting is perfect, authentic." There was nothing authentic about spending 20 minutes staging a breakfast that would be cold by the time she actually ate it. "This can't wait. You took my room without asking, threw away my belongings, and moved me to the basement like some kind of unwanted tenant." She finally lowered her phone, sighing with the exaggerated patience of someone being asked to explain basic arithmetic to a child. "Dad, we've been through this. It's not personal, it's practical. I need that space for my business, and you need to accept that things are changing around here." "Changing to what? This is my house, Emma. I've paid the mortgage for 42 years, and I appreciate that, I really do. But let's be honest, you're retired, you're not getting any younger, and this house is way too big for just you. I'm helping you transition to a more manageable living situation while building something productive in the extra space. More manageable living situation." She made it sound like she was doing me a favor by relegating me to the basement. "What about Margaret's things? The furniture we picked out together, Dad, Mum's been gone for 3 years. Holding on to all that old stuff isn't healthy. You need to move forward, embrace change. Besides, that furniture was seriously outdated. The room looks so much better now, so clean and modern." She resumed photographing her breakfast, dismissing my grief with the casual efficiency of someone deleting unwanted files from a computer. I spent the rest of that morning exploring my own house, seeing it through new eyes. In the living room, I noticed that Margaret's favorite chair was gone, replaced by one of those modern contraptions that looked more like art than furniture. The bookshelf where I'd displayed my military collection had been cleared out, now holding Emma's protein supplements and fitness magazines. Even the family photos had been curated. Gone were the pictures of Margaret and me from our younger years, the vacation shots, the anniversary celebrations. What remained were carefully selected images that supported Emma's narrative, herself as a child, her college graduation, her fitness achievements. It was as if she'd edited the family history to exclude anything that didn't serve her current brand. In the dining room, Margaret's china cabinet had been emptied and repurposed to display Emma's various fitness awards and sponsored products. The good dishes we'd saved for special occasions, the crystal glasses Margaret had inherited from her mother, the silver service we'd received as wedding gifts, all gone. "I sold most of that stuff online," Emma explained when I asked. It was just sitting there collecting dust, and vintage dishes are actually pretty popular on Facebook Marketplace. I probably got $500 for the whole lot. $500 for items that represented 50 years of family gatherings, holiday traditions, and Margaret's pride in maintaining a proper home. But it was in Margaret's sewing room that I found the most devastating changes. The space where my wife had spent countless hours creating quilts for church fundraisers, mending our clothes, and working on needlepoint projects that she gave as gifts had been converted into Emma's content creation studio. Professional lighting equipment dominated the space. A camera mounted on an expensive tripod pointed toward a corner where Emma had arranged various props for her fitness videos. The walls were covered with ring lights, reflectors, and backdrop options in different colors. Margaret's sewing machine, the singer she'd saved up for in 1987 and treasured until her final days, was nowhere to be seen. "Oh, that old thing?" Emma said when I asked. "I donated it to the thrift shop. It was taking up valuable space, and honestly, Dad, when was the last time anyone actually used it? This is the 21st century. If I need clothes altered, I take them to a professional." That old thing. Margaret had made Emma's Halloween costumes on that machine. She'd sewn curtains for every room in the house, repaired countless tears and worn spots, and spent her final weeks creating a memory quilt that told the story of our family through fabric squares cut from Emma's old clothes, my work shirts, and scraps of material from significant moments in our lives. I found that quilt in the basement, stuffed in a garbage bag behind the furnace. As I sat in my new basement quarters that evening, holding Margaret's quilt and listening to Emma film another workout video above me, I realized something important. This wasn't just about a room. It wasn't even about the furniture or the belongings. This was about respect, memory, and the fundamental question of who mattered in this family. Emma had made her position clear. I was an inconvenience to be managed, a relic to be housed in whatever space remained after she'd claimed what she wanted. My wife's memory was expendable clutter. Our 43 years in this house was irrelevant ancient history, but Emma had made one crucial mistake in her hostile takeover. She'd forgotten that her old man hadn't become a master sergeant and combat engineer by accepting defeat gracefully. I'd spent 3 decades solving problems that seemed impossible, building solutions from nothing and outmaneuvering opponents who underestimated experience. My daughter thought she'd won this war by taking the high ground. She had no idea I was about to show her what a real strategic victory looked like. What are your thoughts so far? I want to hear your opinion in the comments below before I continue with this story. The transformation of my house continued over the next few weeks like a slow-motion invasion. Every day brought new evidence that Emma had decided I was no longer the homeowner, but merely a tolerated resident in her expanding empire. I discovered she'd been forging my signature on delivery receipts for gym equipment. UPS and FedEx drivers had been leaving packages addressed to E. Jones, C.O.J. Jones, giving the impression that I'd authorized these purchases. When I confronted the UPS driver, a guy named Mike, who'd been delivering to our neighborhood for 15 years, he looked confused. "Oh, your daughter said you'd given her permission to sign for everything. She told me you had arthritis and couldn't write well anymore. Arthritis. At 66, my hands were steadier than most men half my age, but Emma had painted me as an infirm old man who needed her to handle his affairs. The equipment arriving was worth thousands. Professional grade. Weight machines, specialized flooring, commercial lighting for her video production. I checked my credit card statements and found charges I'd never authorized, all connected to fitness equipment suppliers. When I confronted Emma about the unauthorized purchases, she had her explanation ready. "Dad, we talked about this. You said I could update the house with modern amenities. I'm just taking initiative. I never said you could spend my money without asking. It's an investment in the property value. Besides, you weren't using that credit line anyway. At least now it's generating income instead of just sitting there. She was charging clients for personal training sessions in my living room. I'd come upstairs to find strangers doing lunges on Margaret's Persian rug, using my coffee table to prop their feet during AB exercises. Emma had installed a scheduling system and was booking sessions from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., turning my home into a commercial gym. "These are my premium clients," she explained when I objected to finding a sweaty stranger doing push-ups in my kitchen. "I charge $200 an hour for personalized sessions, and the home environment gives them privacy they can't get at a regular gym. $200 an hour, in my own house, without my permission, while I was relegated to the basement like some kind of embarrassing family secret. But the personal training was just the beginning. Emma had started hosting wellness retreats on weekends, charging groups of women $500 each for day-long programs that included yoga sessions in my backyard, meditation circles in my living room, and healthy cooking demonstrations in my kitchen. I'd wake up on Saturday mornings to find my driveway full of luxury cars and my house invaded by strangers discussing their chakras and detox cleanses. My peaceful suburban home had become a commercial wellness center, and I was treated like the building's maintenance man. "Dad, you really should stay in the basement during my retreat hours," Emma informed me. "My clients are paying for a serene professional experience, and having you wandering around kind of ruins the ambiance." Ruins the ambiance. I ruined the ambiance in my own home. The final straw came when I discovered Emma had been using my name and reputation to legitimize her business. She'd created business cards and website listings that read, "Jones Family Wellness Center, established 1981. The year Margaret and I bought the house." She was using our family name, our address, and our 43-year history to market her fitness business, making it appear as if this was some kind of established family enterprise rather than a hostile takeover of my living space. But worse than the unauthorized business use was what I found in her client consultations. Emma had been telling potential customers that she was the homeowner, that she'd inherited the property from her deceased mother, and that her elderly father lived in the basement apartment for his own safety and comfort. I overheard one of these conversations while coming upstairs for a glass of water. Emma was giving a tour to a prospective client, a woman in her 40s who was considering signing up for regular sessions. "This is perfect," the woman was saying. "Having a dedicated space like this is exactly what I need. How long have you owned the house?" "Well, technically, it's been in the family for decades," Emma replied smoothly. "My mother passed away a few years ago and left it to me. I've been renovating it specifically for wellness purposes. Left it to me. Margaret had left the house to me, her husband of 40 years. But in Emma's version of reality, she was the rightful heir, and I was just some old man she was kind enough to house in the basement." "What about your father? I thought I heard someone downstairs." "Oh yes, Dad lives in the basement apartment. It's actually perfect for him. Everything on one level, private entrance, very safe. At his age, stairs can be dangerous, you know. This arrangement works out well for everyone." At his age, as if I were some doddering invalid who needed constant supervision. That night, I sat in my basement exile and did something I hadn't done since Margaret's funeral. I cried. Not from sadness this time, but from a rage so pure it felt like molten steel in my chest. My daughter had systematically erased me from my own life, stolen my identity, commercialized my home, and rewritten family history to cast herself as the rightful owner and me as her charity case. But as I sat there in that damp basement, surrounded by the boxed remnants of my life, I remembered something important. Something Emma had apparently forgotten in her rush to claim my kingdom. I was James Robert Jones, Master Sergeant, United States Army Corps of Engineers, retired. I'd spent 30 years solving problems that seemed impossible, building bridges where none existed, and clearing paths through obstacles that stopped other men cold. My daughter thought she'd outmaneuvered a tired old man. She had no idea she'd just declared war on someone who'd spent 3 decades learning how to win battles against superior forces. Emma wanted to play business games with my house, my name, and my life. Fine. But she was about to learn that her old man knew a few things about strategy that weren't taught in her online fitness courses. It was time to show my daughter what a real hostile takeover looked like, and I knew exactly where to start. Thanks for staying with me so far. I promise you, the best is yet to come. The garage had always been Margaret's least favorite part of the house. It's just a place for junk, she'd say, watching me tinker with tools or sort through boxes of military memorabilia. When are you going to clean out all that old stuff and actually park a car in there? I never did clean it out. Over the decades, it had become my unofficial archive, a repository for everything I couldn't bring myself to throw away but didn't. It quite know how to display. Military surplus gear from my army days, parts from vehicles I'd restored over the years, tools inherited from my father and grandfather, and buried deeper, things I'd collected but never quite had the courage to show anyone. Standing in that dusty space the morning after Emma's latest humiliation, I saw it differently. This wasn't just a storage area anymore. This was my command center, my workshop, my chance to remind everyone, especially my daughter, exactly who Jim Jones really was. The garage was detached from the house, connected by a covered walkway that Emma never used. She parked her BMW in the driveway, claiming the garage was too cramped and dirty for her car, which meant she had no idea what was actually stored in here. I'd spent 46 years quietly accumulating pieces of American history. Not intentionally at first. It started with my own service items, things too meaningful to discard, but too painful to display while I was still active duty. Then I'd begun picking up items at estate sales, military surplus auctions, and from fellow veterans who were downsizing. Most people saw junk. I saw stories. The footlocker near the back wall contained uniforms from 3 different wars. Not costumes or replicas, but actual issued gear worn by actual soldiers. A World War II army. Air Corps flight jacket with the original squadron patches, bought from the widow of a B-17 gunner. A Korean War field jacket still bearing the mudstains from Chosun Reservoir, given to me by a Marine who couldn't bear to keep it, but couldn't bear to see it thrown away. In another corner, wrapped in oilcloth and stored in custom-built cases, were weapons that told the story of American military evolution. A Springfield rifle carried through the trenches of France in 1918, a Thompson submachine gun that had seen action in the Pacific Theater, an M1 Garand that some GI had brought home from Germany, complete with documentation of its service record. All legal, all properly registered, all maintained in museum-quality condition, but the weapons were just the beginning. I had helmets that had deflected shrapnel in Normandy, boots that had marched through the jungles of Vietnam, field radios that had carried desperate messages from Bastogne, navigation equipment that had guided bomber crews over Nazi Germany. Every piece had a story. Every item represented a moment when ordinary Americans had done extraordinary things, and Emma thought it was all junk. I spent that entire day going through inventory, cataloguing what I had, assessing condition, planning layout. By evening, I had a vision, not just of a display space, but of something that would honor the sacrifice of every veteran who'd entrusted me with these artifacts. Emma was upstairs filming another workout video, her electronic music thumping through the house, when I made my first phone call. "Bill, it's Jim Jones. Yeah, I know it's been a while. Listen, I need some help with a project. Bill Richardson had been my squad leader in Vietnam and my best friend for 48 years. After the army, he'd become a master carpenter, specializing in museum installations and historical displays. If anyone could help me turn a cluttered garage into something spectacular, it was Bill. "What kind of project?" he asked. "The kind that's going to remind some people what honor looks like," I said. 3 days later, Bill arrived with his truck full of tools and materials. Behind him came Tommy Chen, a young contractor whose grandfather had served in my unit, and Mike Morrison, a retired Air Force mechanic who owed me a favor from when I'd helped his son get into West Point. Emma was hosting one of her wellness retreats, so she barely noticed the activity in the garage. When she did ask what was going on, I told her I was organizing some old stuff, which was technically true. We worked with military precision. Bill designed custom display cases that would showcase each artifact while protecting it from dust and humidity. Tommy installed professional lighting that would make every piece visible without causing damage. Mike engineered a climate control system that would preserve fabric and metal for generations. But this wasn't just about preservation. This was about presentation. I wanted anyone who walked into this space to immediately understand that they were in the presence of something sacred. We built display stands for the uniforms, each one positioned to tell a chronological story of American military service. The World War I doughboy uniform stood next to artifacts from the trenches of France. The World War II display included not just uniforms and equipment, but also letters, photographs, and personal items that showed the human cost of victory. The Korean War section featured the memorial flag from the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, donated by a Marine who'd been there. The Vietnam display included my own Purple Heart and Bronze Star, alongside items from soldiers who hadn't made it home. But the centerpiece was something I'd never shown anyone. In the back corner of the garage, hidden behind tarps for 20 years, was a project I'd been working on since my retirement. A perfect scale model of the memorial wall in Washington, D.C., complete with every name etched in black granite. I'd spent 15 years researching, measuring, and carving each letter by hand. Not because I had to, but because someone needed to remember, because in a world where my daughter could dismiss half a century of service as old junk, someone needed to ensure these names would never be forgotten. The model was 8 feet long and 4 feet high, mounted on a custom base with internal lighting that made each name glow softly in the dim garage light. It was my masterpiece, my obsession, my way of honoring the brothers who didn't come home. As we worked, word spread through the veteran community. Guys I'd served with started stopping by, not to help, but just to see what was happening. They'd walk through the space, their eyes widening as they recognized the significance of what we were building. "Jim, this is incredible," said Charlie Williams, a Navy vet who'd lost his leg in Afghanistan. "I've never seen anything like this outside of the Smithsonian." "It's better than the Smithsonian," added Frank Torres, a Marine who'd done 3 tours in Iraq. "This feels real. This feels like it means something." That was exactly what I wanted. Not a museum display behind velvet ropes, but a living memorial where every artifact could be touched, every story could be told, every sacrifice could be understood by anyone who entered. By the end of the 2nd week, we'd transformed the garage into something extraordinary. Professional quality displays showcased artifacts spanning a century of American military service. Interactive stations allowed visitors to handle replica equipment and understand how each piece had been used. Information plaques told the story behind every uniform, every weapon, every personal item. But we weren't finished. The final phase of the project required something that would make Emma's little home gym look like exactly what it was: a vanity. Project built on the ruins of other people's sacrifices. I'd been planning this moment for days, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Emma had scheduled her biggest event yet, a grand opening celebration of her wellness center, complete with local fitness influencers, potential investors, and a photographer who would document her success for a magazine article. She'd sent out invitations describing Jones Family Wellness, a state-of-the-art fitness facility in an elegant historic home. The historic home her mother and I had bought with GI Bill benefits and 40 years of construction work. Emma planned to use this event to launch her business into the next level, to prove that she'd created something important and valuable. She'd scheduled tours of her gym, demonstrations of her training methods, and networking sessions that would establish her as a serious entrepreneur. What she didn't know was that her old man had been preparing his own grand opening celebration, one that would remind everyone present what real service looked like, what genuine sacrifice meant, and what happened when someone tried to erase the memory of better men and women than themselves. The day before Emma's big event, I made one final phone call. General Morrison, this is Jim Jones. Yes, sir, I know it's been a long time. Sir, I have something I think you need to see. Emma's grand opening celebration was scheduled for Saturday afternoon, strategically timed to maximize social media engagement and allow for plenty of natural lighting for photography. She'd spent the entire week preparing, converting my living room into a reception area and setting up demonstration stations throughout the house. I watched from my basement exile as catering trucks arrived, delivering organic appetizers and expensive bottled water branded with Emma's logo. She'd hired a professional photographer and a videographer to document the event, planning to use the footage for promotional materials and her online presence. "Dad, I'm going to need you to stay downstairs during the event," she informed me. "Friday evening. This is a professional gathering, and having you around might send the wrong message about the business." The wrong message? My presence in my own home might confuse people about who actually owned the place. What if I just stayed in the kitchen? I could help with, "No, Dad, this isn't negotiable. I've worked too hard organizing this to have anything go wrong. Just stay downstairs, watch TV, take a nap. I'll save you some food when everyone leaves." She'd save me some food. Like I was a pet being promised table scraps for good behavior. Saturday morning arrived with perfect autumn weather. I watched from my basement window as cars began arriving around noon. Expensive vehicles filled my driveway and lined the street. BMWs, Mercedes, a few Teslas. Emma's target demographic had money, and they weren't shy about displaying it. Through the basement ceiling, I could hear voices, laughter, the clink of glasses. Emma was giving tours of her facility, explaining her training philosophy and business model to potential investors and clients. This space was completely renovated specifically for wellness purposes, I heard her tell one group. The lighting, the acoustics, even the flooring were chosen to create the optimal environment for physical and mental transformation, completely renovated, as if the room hadn't held 40 years of my marriage to Margaret. Around 2 p.m., I heard Emma gathering the crowd in the living room for what she called her vision presentation. She'd prepared a speech about her philosophy, her goals, and her plans for expanding the business. That's when I made my move. I climbed the basement stairs and quietly exited through the side door, making my way to the garage through the covered walkway. Inside, everything was ready. Bill and the guys had done incredible work, but today would be the first time anyone else saw what we'd accomplished. I checked my phone. General Morrison would arrive in 30 minutes, along with the other guests I'd invited. The timing would be perfect. At exactly 2:30 p.m., I opened the garage doors. The late afternoon sunlight streamed into the space, illuminating displays that took your breath away. The organized precision of military artifacts, the respectful presentation of sacrifice and service, the obvious care and expertise that had gone into every detail. General Morrison arrived first, stepping out of his staff car in full dress uniform. At 78, he still carried himself like the warrior he'd always been. Behind him came Colonel Patricia Hayes, the current base commander, and Command Sergeant Major Rodriguez, who represented the enlisted perspective. But they weren't my only guests. Word had spread through the veteran community faster than I'd anticipated. Charlie Williams arrived with 3 other disabled vets from the VA hospital. Frank Torres brought his entire American Legion post. By 3 p.m., I had over 40 veterans standing in my garage, and more were arriving every few minutes. "Jesus Christ, Jim," General Morrison whispered, his eyes wide as he took in the displays. "How long have you been working on this?" "About 15 years for the planning, sir. 2 weeks for the execution." He moved from display to display, reading every placard, examining every artifact. At the Vietnam Memorial replica, he stopped completely. "This is extraordinary. Every name is here. Every detail is perfect." He turned to face me. "Jim, this belongs in the Smithsonian. This is museum-quality work." Colonel Hayes was equally impressed. "Sergeant Jones, I've toured military museums all over the world. This rivals anything I've seen. The attention to detail, the respect for the artifacts, it's incredible." That's when we heard Emma's voice from the walkway. "Dad, what's going on out here? I thought I told you to stay in the—" She stopped mid-sentence as she saw the crowd in the garage. 40-plus veterans in various uniforms, including a general and a colonel, all focused on displays that transformed her father from basement-dwelling burden into master curator of American military history. Behind Emma came her party guests, drawn by curiosity about what was happening outside. The fitness influencers, the potential investors, the photographer, all of them crowding into the walkway to see what had captured everyone's attention. The contrast was immediate and devastating. Emma's gym, impressive as it was to people interested in fitness, suddenly looked trivial next to a space that honored genuine sacrifice and service. Her motivational quotes about pain being weakness leaving the body seemed shallow compared to artifacts from people who'd actually faced life and death pain in defense of their country. "This is incredible," said Sarah Mitchell, one of Emma's potential investors. "How long has this museum been here?" "It's not a museum," I said quietly, stepping forward. "It's a memorial. Every piece here represents someone who served, someone who sacrificed, someone who understood that strength isn't about building muscles for social media followers." Emma's face had gone pale. She was seeing her father, the man she'd relegated to the basement, the man whose possessions she'd called old junk, being treated with the respect and admiration she'd been desperately seeking for herself. "General," Morrison approached Emma, his bearing commanding even in civilian company. "Ma'am, you must be Jim's daughter. You should be incredibly proud of your father. This collection represents one of the finest private military archives I've ever encountered." I had no idea," Emma stammered, her confidence evaporating, as she realized every single person at her carefully planned event was now focused on the garage instead of her gym. "Your father has been preserving American military history for decades," Colonel Hayes added. "These artifacts are priceless, not just in monetary terms, but in cultural significance. This collection could anchor a major museum exhibition." The photographer Emma had hired was already snapping pictures, but not of her fitness equipment. His camera was capturing the memorial wall, the uniform displays, the respectful attention of seasoned veterans examining artifacts that connected them to their own service. "This is what real strength looks like," said Command Sergeant Major Rodriguez, gesturing toward the Vietnam display. "Your father and these men didn't build muscle for Instagram. They built character in places where weakness meant death." Emma's potential investors were asking questions now, but not about fitness programs or wellness retreats. They wanted to know about the historical significance of the collection, the stories behind the artifacts, the possibility of public exhibitions. "Mr. Jones," said David Chen, one of the businessmen Emma had been courting, Have you considered turning this into a proper museum? With the right backing, this could become a significant cultural attraction. The educational value alone would be immense, added Jennifer Walsh, a woman who'd been considering signing up for personal training sessions. My children need to see this, to understand what previous generations sacrificed for our freedom. I watched Emma standing in the walkway, her party guests streaming past her into the garage, her carefully planned celebration completely forgotten in favor of her father's old junk. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I took no pleasure in her obvious distress. "Dad," she said quietly, pulling me aside as the crowd continued to explore the displays. I didn't know you had all this. Why didn't you ever show me?" "When would I've shown you, Emma? When you were selling Margaret's china on Facebook Marketplace? When you were throwing my belongings in boxes? When you told your clients that I was just an old man living in the basement for my own safety?" She flinched at each example, the reality of her actions becoming clear as she watched respected military officers treating her father like the expert curator he'd become. "I thought it was just old military stuff," she whispered. "I didn't realize." "You didn't realize because you never asked. You assumed that because I was retired, because I was widowed, because I was older, that meant I had nothing valuable to contribute. You saw a burden to be managed instead of a man with 46 years of experience preserving history." The crowd in the garage had grown. Word was spreading through social media. Not Emma's carefully crafted fitness content, but photos and videos of an extraordinary private collection that honored American veterans. Emma's photographer was now working for me, documenting displays that would be featured in military publications and historical journals. "General Morrison," I called out, "would you do me the honor of formally dedicating this memorial?" The general stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of 4 decades of military service. "It would be my privilege, Sergeant Jones." As the crowd fell silent, General Morrison began speaking about sacrifice, service, and the importance of preserving the memory of those who'd paid the ultimate price for freedom. His words carried weight that no fitness motivational quote could match, respect that no social media follower count could equal. Emma stood in the back, watching her. Father received recognition that she'd spent years chasing through likes, shares, and Instagram metrics. The difference was obvious to everyone present: genuine respect, earned through service versus manufactured influence bought through marketing. When the general finished speaking, the crowd erupted in applause. Not the polite applause of people attending a business networking event, but the heartfelt appreciation of people who'd been moved by something meaningful. As the afternoon continued, I noticed Emma's original guests beginning to leave. The fitness influencers and wellness enthusiasts, faced with an event that had nothing to do with their interests, made polite excuses and departed. But new people kept arriving, veterans who'd heard about the collection, military families, historians, and community leaders. By evening, my garage had become the center of attention that Emma had hoped her gym would be. But more than that, it had become something sacred, a place where people came to remember, to honor, and to understand the true meaning of strength and sacrifice. Emma found me as the last guests were leaving, her earlier confidence completely gone. "Dad, I owe you an apology, a big one." "Yes," I said simply. "You do." But what she didn't know yet was that her apology, sincere as it might be, was too late to change what was about to happen next. Because the events of this day had set in motion something bigger than either of us had anticipated, something that would transform not just our relationship, but the entire community's understanding of what it meant to honor those who'd served. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. You won't want to miss what happens next. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened fast. By Monday morning, Photos and videos from the garage memorial had spread across social media platforms in ways Emma had never achieved with her fitness content. Local news stations called asking for interviews. The regional chapter of the Veterans of Foreign Wars wanted to schedule group visits. Military history professors from 3 different universities requested permission to bring their classes. Emma's phone was ringing too, but not with the calls she'd hoped for. Her potential investors were backing out, more interested in discussing historical preservation than fitness programs. The magazine that was supposed to feature her wellness business wanted to change the focus to my military collection. Even her social media followers were asking about that amazing Veterans Memorial instead of her workout routines. I found her in the kitchen Tuesday morning, staring at her laptop screen with the expression of someone watching her dreams evaporate. 46,000 views, she said without looking up. The video of General Morrison's speech has 46,000 views in 3 days. My most popular fitness video has 8,000 views, and I've been building that following for 2 years. I poured myself coffee, the good stuff Emma had. I bought for her business event, and sat across from her at the table where Margaret and I used to plan our days. Emma, we need to talk. I know, Dad. I know I messed up. I was thinking about the apology I owe you, and I realize it's bigger than I thought. She closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. Her face showed exhaustion, stress, and something that might have been genuine remorse. I'm sorry I took your room without asking. I'm sorry I sold Mom's things without consulting you. I'm sorry I treated you like you were in the way, instead of recognizing that this is your house, your life, your choice how to live it. It was a good start, but I could see in her eyes that she was also calculating the business implications of her apology. Emma had always been tactical, even in her emotions. I'm also sorry I didn't know about your collection, about what it meant, what you'd built, how important it was. I was so focused on my own goals that I didn't see what was right in front of me. And what was that? That my father is someone worth respecting. That you've accomplished things I didn't understand. That maybe I could have learned something from you instead of assuming I had nothing to learn. Her apology was sincere, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Emma was beginning to understand that her father's military memorial represented an opportunity that could dwarf her fitness business. She was already thinking about angles, partnerships, ways to capitalize on the sudden attention. Dad, I've been thinking, what if we work together on this? Your collection is incredible, but it needs proper management, marketing, public relations. I have skills in social media, event planning, business development. We could turn this into something amazing. There it was, the pivot. Emma couldn't beat what I'd built, so she wanted to join it, to manage it, to take credit for it. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership, Jones Family Military Memorial. You provide the expertise and the collection, I handle the business side. We could get grants, corporate sponsorships, educational partnerships. This could be huge, Dad, bigger than anything either of us could do alone. Emma was already seeing dollar signs, imagining herself as the CEO of a successful non-profit organization, networking with military leaders and historical societies. Her fitness business had failed to gain traction, but this was ready-made success, that she could inherit simply by being my daughter. Have you given any thought to moving back to your apartment? I asked. The question caught her off guard. My apartment? Dad, why would I move back there? My lease is up, and honestly, it makes more sense for me to stay here while we develop this memorial business. I can convert my gym back to a bedroom, and we can use the space for meetings, planning sessions. Convert her gym back to a bedroom. My bedroom. The one she'd taken without permission. Emma, what makes you think I want a business partner? Well, I just assumed. You can't manage something this big by yourself. You'll need help with publicity, fundraising, visitor management, and I'm your daughter. We're family. Family. The same family designation she'd ignored when she threw Margaret's belongings in the basement and moved me out of my own room. "Let me ask you something," I said. "If my collection had turned out to be worthless junk, if Saturday's event had been a complete failure, would you still want to be my business partner?" Emma hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw the truth. She wasn't interested in reconciliation for its own sake. She was interested in attaching herself to my success after failing to build her own. "That's not fair, Dad. Of course I care about you regardless of the business potential. But this is an opportunity to do something meaningful together, to honor veterans, to preserve history. Isn't that more important than nursing old grudges?" Old grudges. As if 40 years of marriage memories and 3 years of grief were petty. Grievances I should set aside for the good of her career pivot. "Emma, I appreciate your apology. I accept it. But accepting an apology doesn't mean pretending the damage didn't happen." "What damage?" "I made some mistakes, yes, but nothing that can't be fixed. I can move your things back upstairs. We can redecorate however you want. We can make this work, Dad." She still didn't understand. This wasn't about furniture or room assignments. This was about respect, about the fundamental question of whether she saw me as a person worthy of consideration or as a resource to be managed for her benefit. The phone rang before I could respond. Another interview request, this time from a military history documentary producer who wanted to feature my collection in an upcoming series about veteran memorials. Emma's eyes lit up as she listened to my side of the conversation. She was already imagining herself on camera, discussing the family legacy, positioning herself as co-creator of something historically significant. When I hung up, she leaned forward eagerly. "Dad, this is exactly what I mean. National television, exposure, documentary features. This could put us on the map in ways I never achieved with fitness content. But you'll need someone to handle media relations, coordinate filming, manage the publicity. I can do all of that." "What about your wellness business?" "Honestly, I think I was pursuing the wrong dream. Fitness is such a saturated market, and I was never really passionate about it the way I thought I was. But this memorial, this history, it feels important. It feels like something worth building a life around." Emma had found her new angle. When fitness influencing didn't work out, she'd pivot to military history. When personal training failed to generate sustainable income, she'd rebrand herself as a memorial administrator. Same ambition, same self-focus, different packaging. "I need some time to think about this," I told her. "Of course, take all the time you need. But Dad, I really think we could build something incredible together, something that honors Mom's memory, your service, our family legacy." Our family legacy. Margaret's name invoked to justify Emma's latest business scheme. That afternoon, while Emma was out returning some of her gym equipment to make room for memorial planning, I made a phone call that would change everything. General Morrison. "It's Jim Jones again. Sir, I have a proposition for you." The call I made to General Morrison set in motion a plan that had been forming in my mind since Saturday's events. Not a plan for revenge. I'd moved beyond that. This was about justice, about ensuring that the memorial I'd built would serve its intended purpose without being corrupted by personal ambition. "Sergeant Jones," the general said when I explained my proposal. "That's an extraordinarily generous offer. Are you certain about this?" "Yes, sir, completely certain. The paperwork will take several weeks to finalize, but I can have our legal team begin the process immediately. This kind of donation will require proper documentation, tax assessments, transfer protocols." "I understand, sir. I want everything done properly, legally, permanently." Emma was scheduled to return from her equipment rental company at 4 p.m. I used the time to make additional calls, ensuring that all parties understood their roles in what was about to unfold. At 4:15, Emma's BMW pulled into the driveway. She was in an obviously good mood, humming as she walked through the front door carrying a folder full of papers. "Dad, you're going to love this," she called out. "I've been working on a business plan for the memorial. I've got ideas for revenue, streams, educational partnerships, even a gift shop concept. We could really turn this into something substantial." She found me in the living room, sitting in the chair that had once been Margaret's favorite spot for afternoon reading. I also talked to my accountant about non-profit status, tax benefits, corporate sponsorship opportunities. "The potential here is incredible, Dad. We could be looking at six-figure annual revenue within 2 years. Six-figure annual revenue. Emma had reduced the sacrifice of American heroes to a profit projection. "Sit down, Emma. We need to finish our conversation from this morning." She settled onto the couch, spreading her papers on the coffee table. "I know you needed time to think, but honestly, the more I researched this, the more excited I got. We could host special events, educational seminars, veteran reunions. The garage space is just the beginning. We could expand into the backyard, maybe even add a separate building." "Emma, I've made my decision about the memorial, and I'm donating the entire collection to the National Museum of American Military History." The color drained from her face. "What?" "General Morrison connected me with the museum's board of directors. They're sending a team next week to catalog everything and arrange for professional transport. The collection will be permanently housed in a climate-controlled facility where scholars and the public can access it properly." Emma stared at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Dad, you can't be serious. Do you have any idea what you're giving away? The value of that collection, the business potential?" "I know exactly what I'm giving away. That's why I'm giving it away. But we had a plan. We were going to work together, build something meaningful. You had a plan, Emma, to monetize artifacts that represent other people's sacrifice. To build your third or fourth business venture on the backs of veterans who can't object because they're buried in Arlington." She stood up, pacing now, her business plans forgotten on the table. "This is about me taking your room, isn't it? You're punishing me by throwing away millions of dollars worth of history. Millions of dollars. There it is again. You see dollar signs where you should see honor. Don't lecture me about honor, Dad. You're about to give away the most valuable thing our family owns out of spite. Our family doesn't own it, Emma. I own it. And I'm ensuring it goes where it belongs, where it can serve its proper purpose without being turned into a profit center." Emma stopped pacing, her face flushed with anger and desperation. "This is insane. You're not thinking clearly. This is exactly the kind of decision that proves you need someone to help manage your affairs." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Emma was suggesting that my decision to donate the collection was evidence of mental incompetence, grounds for challenging my legal authority to make such decisions. "Are you threatening to have me declared mentally unfit, Emma?" "I'm saying that giving away millions of dollars worth of historical artifacts without consulting family members raises questions about judgment and decision-making capacity." There it was. When Emma couldn't control the situation through manipulation or partnership proposals, she'd resort to legal intimidation. She was threatening to challenge my mental competency to prevent the donation. "You know what, Emma? You're right. I should consult family members about important decisions. That's why I called your Uncle Robert last week." Emma's face went pale. Uncle Robert was Margaret's brother, a retired attorney who'd always been skeptical of Emma's financial decisions and lifestyle choices. "Uncle Robert has been researching some interesting things about your business activities over the past year. Credit applications using my information without authorization. Business registrations claiming I was a partner in ventures I knew nothing about. Tax filings that included my address for businesses I never approved." Each revelation hit Emma like a physical blow. She'd been sloppy in her eagerness to establish credit and legitimacy for her various ventures, using my name and reputation. Without permission. Dad, I can explain all of that. It was just paperwork, technical stuff to get the businesses established. I was going to sort it all out once everything was running smoothly. Identity theft, Emma. That's what it's called when you use someone else's information without permission for financial gain. Uncle Robert has documentation of at least 12 separate instances over the past 18 months. Emma sat down heavily, her business plans scattered on the floor. You're bluffing. You wouldn't prosecute your own daughter. You're right, I wouldn't. But the IRS might be interested in the tax implications of your business activities, and the state licensing board might want to review your business registrations. For accuracy, the reality of her situation was finally sinking in. Emma had been so focused on building her empire that she'd cut legal and ethical corners, assuming her father would never notice or never care enough to object. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want you to pack your belongings and move back to your apartment. I want you to stop using my name, my address, and my credit for your business ventures. I want you to understand that this house belongs to me, not to you, and that I'm the one who decides how it's used. And if I do all that, you'll reconsider the museum donation?" "No, Emma. The donation stands regardless. That decision isn't about punishing you. It's about honoring the people who entrusted me with their stories." Emma looked around the living room, seeing it perhaps for the first time as something other than a backdrop for her ambitions. "I really messed this up, didn't I?" "Yes, you did. Is there any way to fix it?" I studied my daughter's face, looking for genuine remorse beneath the calculation and desperation. What I saw was a woman who'd finally understood that actions had consequences, that people weren't resources to be managed for personal benefit. "Maybe," I said, "but it starts with you moving out and learning to respect other people's choices, even when those choices don't benefit you." Emma nodded slowly, gathering her scattered papers. As she headed toward the stairs to pack, she turned back one final time. "Dad? I really am sorry. About everything." "I know you are, Emma. The question is whether you're sorry because you got caught, or sorry because you finally understand what you did wrong." She didn't answer, which was answer enough. But neither of us knew that the real surprise was still to come. Because the museum donation, dramatic as it was, wasn't the end of my plan. It was just the beginning. 3 days later, Emma was gone. She'd packed her belongings quietly, returned the last of her gym equipment, and moved back to the apartment she'd kept as a backup plan. Before leaving, she'd tried one final time to convince me to reconsider the museum donation. "Dad, I understand why you're angry. I understand why you don't trust me with the business side of the memorial. But donating everything to a museum in Washington, D.C. means that people here in our community won't be able to experience it regularly. Isn't there a way to keep the collection local while still protecting it from commercialization?" It was a fair point, and one I'd already considered extensively. But Emma was still thinking tactically, still looking for an angle that might benefit her eventually. "The decision is final," I told her. "The museum team arrives Monday to begin cataloguing everything." Sunday evening, I sat in my reclaimed bedroom, surrounded by the furniture Emma had returned from storage. Margaret's vanity stood in its original position, her jewelry box and perfume bottles arranged exactly as she'd kept them. The cedar chest held her letters again. Our wedding photo was back on the nightstand. It felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. Monday morning brought the museum team, 3 specialists in military artifacts, a logistics coordinator, and Dr. Sarah Chen, the chief curator of the National Museum of American Military History. "Mr. Jones," Dr. Chen said as she examined the first display case, "I want you to know that this collection will be treated with the absolute highest level of care and respect. Every piece will be properly preserved, catalogued, and made available For research and public education, I walked them through each display, telling the story behind every artifact, explaining the provenance and significance of items I'd spent decades collecting. Their appreciation was genuine and professional, the kind of respect Emma had never shown for what she'd called old junk. "This replica of the Vietnam Memorial is extraordinary," said Dr. Chen. "The craftsmanship, the attention to detail, its museum quality. Would you consider allowing us to display it as the centerpiece of our new exhibition hall?" That's exactly what I'd hoped for. As the team worked through the afternoon, cataloging and preparing items for transport, I found myself feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. These artifacts would be preserved properly, displayed respectfully, and used to educate people about the sacrifice and service of American veterans. Emma called twice during the process, asking if I was really going through with this. I didn't answer. Some decisions weren't open for further discussion. By evening, the garage was empty, except for the custom display cases Bill and the guys had built. The museum team would return tomorrow with a truck to collect those as well. They wanted to recreate my display layout in their new exhibition space. That night, as I sat in Margaret's reading chair, looking out at the empty garage, I realized that Emma had taught me something valuable, though not in the way she'd intended. Her betrayal had forced me to clarify what actually mattered, not the possessions themselves, but the stories they preserved, the memories they honored, the lessons they taught. Wednesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. General Morrison arrived alone, in civilian clothes, carrying a manila folder. "Jim, I need to discuss something with you. May I come in?" We sat in my living room, the space feeling peaceful and balanced, now that it had been restored to its original purpose. "The museum board met yesterday to review your donation," the general began. "They're absolutely thrilled, of course. Your collection will anchor their new wing on Vietnam War history, and the memorial replica will be the centerpiece of their main exhibition hall. That's exactly what I wanted. However, they've asked me to present you with a proposal." He opened the folder and handed me several documents. "They want to name the new wing in your honor, the James Robert Jones Veterans Memorial Wing. Your collection would be permanently associated with your name and your service." I read through the proposal, impressed by the scope of what they were planning. The wing would include not just my artifacts, but also oral history stations, where visitors could hear recorded interviews with veterans from every American conflict since World War II. "There's more," General Morrison continued. "The museum wants to offer you a position as senior consultant for acquisitions and veteran relations. You'd help them evaluate new collections, conduct interviews with veterans, and ensure that their displays maintain the kind of respect and accuracy you've demonstrated. A job, not just recognition, but meaningful work that would use my experience and knowledge to serve a larger purpose. It's a paid position," he added. "Not a fortune, but enough to be comfortable. And it comes with travel opportunities. They want you to visit other museums, military bases, veteran organizations. You'd be helping to preserve military history on a national scale." I looked at the documents, then out the window toward the empty garage where I'd spent 15 years, building something meaningful. The offer was everything I could have hoped for. Respect, purpose, the chance to continue serving in a way that mattered. "General, I'm honored, truly honored, but I need to ask, is this offer connected to my donation, or would you have made it regardless?" "Jim, we've been looking for someone with your expertise and integrity for 2 years. Your donation just helped us realize we'd already found the right person." That evening, I called Emma to tell her about the museum's offer. She answered on the first ring, her voice eager. "Dad, how did the final pickup go? Did they take everything?" "Yes, Emma. Everything's been transferred to the museum. I've been thinking about what you said, about learning to respect other people's choices. I want you to know that I understand why you made that decision. I don't like it, but I understand. Actually, that's not why I'm calling. I told her about the museum's offer, the named wing, the consulting position. I explained that I'd accepted and would be relocating to Washington, D.C. within 2 months. The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Dad, you're moving to Washington? Yes. The museum is helping me find an apartment near the facility. I'll be working with veterans from across the country, helping to preserve military history at the highest level. But what about the house? What about us? Emma's voice carried a note of panic I hadn't heard since she was a child afraid of thunderstorms. The house will be sold. I've already contacted a realtor. Sold? Dad, this is our family home. You can't just sell it. I can and I am. Emma, I'm 66 years old. I've been given an opportunity to do meaningful work in honor of people who sacrificed everything for this country. I'm not going to waste that opportunity sitting in an empty house, nursing hurt feelings. But where will I mean, if you need someone to house sit while you're in Washington, even now, even after everything that had happened, Emma was looking for an angle, a way to benefit from my decision, to position herself as caretaker of property that might someday be hers. Emma, the house will be sold to a nice young family who will appreciate it the way your mother and I did. The proceeds will fund my retirement and support the museum's educational programs. You're giving away our inheritance. Our inheritance. Not my life's work, not my home, not my choice. Our inheritance that she felt entitled to regardless of her actions. No, Emma. I'm taking control of my own life for the first time in 3 years. The conversation ended with Emma crying, partly from genuine emotion and partly from the realization that her backup plans had just evaporated. The house she'd counted on inheriting would be gone. The father she'd taken for granted was moving across the country. The memorial that could have been her ticket to success was now permanently beyond her reach. But that wasn't the end of our story, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from punishment, but from the unexpected gift of grace. The moving sale was scheduled for the first Saturday in November. I'd placed ads in local papers, posted announcements on community bulletin boards, and hired a professional estate sale company to handle the logistics. After 43 years in the same house, Margaret and I had accumulated more possessions than I'd realized. Emma arrived early that morning, before the sale officially opened to the public. She looked tired, subdued, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer athletic wear. In her hand, she carried a small box. Dad, I wanted to return these before strangers started going through everything. She handed me the box. Inside, carefully wrapped in tissue paper, were items I hadn't seen in months. Margaret's favorite coffee mug, our anniversary watch, the last photo we'd taken together. Items that Emma had kept from the original box in the basement. I found them in my apartment when I was unpacking. I guess I must have taken them without thinking, maybe hoping to preserve something of Mom's memory. She paused, looking around the living room where price tags now marked every piece of furniture. I wanted you to have them back before everything changed. It was the first time since this whole ordeal began that Emma had acted without apparent calculation. No angle, no benefit to herself, just the simple recognition that these items belonged with me. Thank you, I said, and meant it. The sale opened at 8 a.m., and within an hour the house was filled with neighbors, collectors, and strangers examining the accumulated possessions of my life with Margaret. Some items sold quickly, the good, tools, quality furniture, household appliances that still worked perfectly. Others sat ignored, too specific to our lives to interest strangers. Emma stayed throughout the morning, helping where she could, answering questions about items when buyers asked about their history. I watched her explain to a young couple why the kitchen table was priced fairly, how my grandfather had built it to last for generations. My parents ate every meal at this table for 20 years, she told them. It's solid oak, handcrafted. You won't find quality like this anymore. She was selling our family history with genuine enthusiasm, helping strangers understand the value of items she'd once dismissed as outdated clutter. Around noon, a familiar voice called my name from the front yard. "Jim, is that you?" I turned to see Frank Morrison, my old squad leader from Vietnam, walking up the driveway with his wife Carol. Behind them came 3 other men I recognized from various veterans gatherings over the years. "Frank, what are you doing here? Heard about your sale from Bill Richardson. Thought we'd stop by, see if there was anything we could use." He gestured toward his companions. "Plus, Carol's been wanting to meet the man responsible for that incredible memorial." Carol Morrison was a retired nurse who'd spent 40 years working at the VA hospital. She shook my hand with the firm grip of someone accustomed to dealing with strong personalities. "Mr. Jones, my husband has not stopped talking about your collection since Saturday. I understand you're donating everything to the National Museum." "Yes, ma'am, it seemed like the right thing to do. It absolutely is. Those artifacts deserve to be preserved properly, where they can educate people about the sacrifice military families make." She paused, studying my face. "But Frank tells me you're moving to Washington to work with the museum. That's quite a change at your age." "Sometimes change is necessary, Mrs. Morrison. Call me Carol. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes we have to choose between comfort and purpose." She looked around the sale, taking in the organized chaos of a life being dismantled. "Are you excited about the move?" "I'm looking forward to the work. The museum has incredible resources, and they're committed to preserving military history in ways that honor the people who lived it." Frank had wandered over to examine a box of my old tools, military surplus gear I'd kept for decades, without clear purpose. "Jim, you selling these separately or as a lot? What are you thinking, Frank?" "Well, some of us older guys have been talking about starting a workshop program at the VA hospital. Nothing fancy, just a space where veterans can work with their hands, build things, stay active. These tools would be perfect for getting something like that started." I looked at the box Frank was examining. Socket sets, wrenches, measuring tools, equipment I'd accumulated over 30 years of construction work and military service. Good tools that deserve to be used rather than stored in someone's garage. "Frank, take whatever you need. No charge." "Jim, I can't just—" "Yes, you can. If those tools can help veterans stay active and productive, that's exactly what they should be doing." Carol Morrison smiled. "See? That's what I meant about choosing purpose over comfort." Emma had been listening to our conversation from across the yard. She approached carrying a clipboard where she'd been tracking sales for the estate company. "Dad, are you sure about giving away the tools? That's probably $1,500 worth of equipment." "Emma, meet Frank Morrison. He served with me in Vietnam." Emma shook Frank's hand politely, but I could see her calculating the lost revenue from my donation. "Frank's starting a workshop program at the VA hospital," I explained. "These tools will help veterans stay engaged, learn new skills, work on meaningful projects." "That's very nice," Emma said, "but shouldn't we at least charge something, even a symbolic amount?" Frank looked uncomfortable. "Young lady, if money's an issue, I'm happy to pay fair price for anything we use." "Frank, ignore my daughter. Take what you need." Emma's face flushed, but she didn't argue further. Instead, she walked back to her clipboard, leaving me to help. Frank and his friends sought through the tools they could use. As the afternoon continued, word spread among the veteran community that I was essentially holding a giveaway for anything military-related. Men I'd served with, friends from the VFW, guys I'd met at various veterans events. They started arriving not to buy, but to receive items I was determined to place in hands that would appreciate them. A Korean War veteran took home a field Radio that still worked perfectly. A Desert Storm veteran claimed a set of surplus camping gear he could use for hiking trips with his grandson. A young veteran from Afghanistan accepted a tactical backpack that had been gathering dust in my closet for years. Emma watched these transactions with growing frustration. Each item I gave away represented money we weren't making. Value that was walking out the door without compensation. "Dad, can I talk to you privately?" We stepped into the empty kitchen, away from the crowd, examining remaining sale items. "I understand wanting to help fellow veterans, but you're giving away thousands of dollars worth of equipment. If money's not important to you, it could be important to me." "How do you figure that, Emma?" "Well, whatever doesn't sell here could be part of my inheritance someday. You're literally giving away money that might help me get back on my feet financially." There it was again. Even in this moment, even after everything that had happened, Emma was thinking about her inheritance, about what she might receive from my decisions, rather than what those decisions actually meant. "Emma, let me be very clear about something. There is no inheritance." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean that every dollar from this sale, every penny from the house sale, every cent I have to my name will either support my retirement or be donated to veterans organizations. You will inherit nothing, because there will be nothing left to inherit." "Dad, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You've spent the last year treating me like a burden to be managed, a resource to be exploited for your benefit. You've sold my wife's belongings, stolen my identity for your business ventures, and tried to erase me from my own home. Did you really think I'd reward that behavior by leaving you a financial cushion?" Emma sat down heavily on one of the remaining kitchen stools. "But I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. I gave back Mom's things." "Yes, you did. And I appreciate that. But apologies don't erase consequences, Emma. Actions have results that last longer than regret. So this is punishment. You're punishing me by making sure I get nothing." "No, Emma, this is justice. I'm ensuring that the wealth Margaret and I accumulated through 43 years of hard work goes to people who understand sacrifice and service." Through the kitchen window, I could see Frank Morrison helping another veteran load tools into his truck. The two men were laughing, sharing stories, treating my surplus equipment like treasure because they understood its value beyond money. "What am I supposed to do?" Emma asked quietly. "I'm 32 years old. My business failed. I have no savings, no real job skills outside of fitness training. I was counting on... I thought eventually... You thought you could treat me badly for years and still inherit my life's work as your reward. I thought I was family. I thought family took care of each other." "Family does take care of each other, Emma. But you stopped treating me like family the day you moved me to the basement and sold Margaret's china on Facebook Marketplace." Emma began crying then, not the manipulative tears she'd used during our business negotiations, but genuine sobs of someone realizing that their safety net had disappeared. "Dad, I'm scared. I don't know how to take care of myself without help." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of the paternal instinct that had once driven me to work double shifts to pay for her college, to co-sign her first apartment lease, to support her through every failed venture and relationship. "Emma, you're a smart, capable woman. You have a college degree, marketing skills, social media expertise. You don't need an inheritance to build a life. You need work ethic and integrity. But it's so much harder when you're starting from nothing." "I started from nothing, Emma. So did your mother. We built everything you grew up taking for granted through decades of sacrifice and careful choices. You can do the same thing if you're willing to stop looking for shortcuts." I don't know how. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her for the first time in months. Beneath the entitlement and calculation, I saw something I'd almost forgotten, the little girl who used to help me in the garage, who'd been so proud when I taught her to use a screwdriver, who'd once dreamed of being an engineer like her daddy. "Emma," I'm going to tell you something, but I want you to listen very carefully. She wiped her eyes, looking up at me with the expression of someone grasping for hope. I'm not giving you money. I'm not leaving you an inheritance. I'm not solving your financial problems for you. She started to object, but I held up my hand. But I am going to give you something more valuable than money. What? A chance to earn back my respect. Emma frowned, not understanding. The museum position in Washington comes with opportunities to travel, to visit other military installations, to coordinate with veteran organizations across the country. They've indicated they might need additional staff, people who understand. Social media, event planning, public relations? Her eyes widened slightly. I'm not offering you a job, Emma. I'm offering you the chance to apply for one. To earn a position based on your skills and merit, not on being my daughter. To work alongside people who've dedicated their lives to something bigger than themselves. You'd recommend me? I'd give you the opportunity to recommend yourself. If you're willing to start at the bottom, learn humility, prove that you can serve something greater than your own ambitions. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing what I was offering. Not rescue, but opportunity, not inheritance, but the chance to earn her way. It would mean leaving Colorado. Yes. Starting over completely. Yes. Working for people who don't know me, don't owe me anything. Yes. She stood up, walked to the window, and watched Frank Morrison's group loading the last of my donated tools. Men who'd served their country, who understood sacrifice, who were using my equipment to help other. Veterans find purpose in community. Dad, if I did this, if I applied for a museum position and somehow got hired, would we be okay? Would you forgive me? Emma, I told you earlier that I forgave you. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust. Trust has to be earned through consistent actions over time. How long would that take? However long it takes. She turned back to face me, her expression more serious than I'd seen in years. I want to try. I want to apply for whatever positions they have available, even if it's filing papers or answering phones. I want to earn my way back into your life instead of trying to manipulate my way into your wallet. Are you sure? Because this isn't a game, Emma. If you take this path, you'll be starting from zero. No special treatment because you're my daughter. No financial backup from me if things get difficult. You'll succeed or fail based entirely on your own efforts. I understand. And if you fail, if you quit, if you revert to looking for shortcuts and trying to exploit other people, this opportunity will never come again. I understand. I studied my daughter's face, looking for signs of calculation or manipulation. What I saw was determination mixed with genuine fear, the expression of someone who'd finally realized that their actions had consequences, but who was willing to face those consequences honestly. All right, I said. I'll make some calls. Emma hugged me then, quickly, awkwardly, but with genuine emotion. Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 5 years if you've built something meaningful with your life. As Emma went back outside to help with the final hours of the sale, I remained in the empty kitchen, looking out at the garage that had started this whole journey. Tomorrow, even that would be gone, dismantled and moved to the museum where it would serve a larger purpose. But for the first time since Margaret's death, I felt like our family's story might not be over. Emma had a long road ahead of her, and there were no guarantees she'd stay on it. But she'd taken the first step toward earning back not just my respect, but her own self-respect. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or comfort or easy solutions. Sometimes the greatest gift is the chance to discover what they're actually capable of when they stop looking for shortcuts and start building something real. Whether Emma would take advantage of that gift remained to be seen, but I'd given her the opportunity to surprise us both. 6 months later, I was settling into my new office at the National Museum of American Military History when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. number I didn't recognize. Mr. Jones, this is Dr. Patricia Williams from the museum's education department. I wanted to update you on the application we discussed. Emma, she'd applied for an entry-level position in the museum's public outreach program 3 months earlier. I'd kept my promise not to influence the hiring process, but I'd been curious about the outcome. How did she do? Well, I have to say, when Emma first applied, I was skeptical. Her resume showed a pattern of starting projects without finishing them, and frankly, her initial interview was a bit entitled. My heart sank. Emma had blown her opportunity. However, Dr. Williams continued, something changed between her. First and second interview, she came back with a completely different attitude. She'd researched our mission extensively, volunteered at the local VA hospital on her own time, and presented ideas for veteran outreach programs that were genuinely innovative. And we hired her last month as a program coordinator, starting. Salary, no special treatment, reporting to our most demanding supervisor. Relief flooded through me. How is she doing? Jim, I won't lie to you, she's struggling. The work is harder than she expected. The hours are long, and she's learning that good intentions don't automatically translate to effective programs. Dr. Williams paused. But she's not quitting. She's asking questions, accepting criticism, staying late to improve her work. Her supervisor says she's never seen someone work so hard to overcome their own inexperience. That evening, I called Emma for the first time since the moving sale. Dad! Her voice carried genuine joy, not the calculated enthusiasm I'd grown accustomed to. Dr. Williams said she talked to you. I can't believe she told you about my rocky start. She also told me you're working hard to improve. I am. Dad, this job is so much harder than I thought it would be. These veterans have real problems, real needs. And my old approach of just being enthusiastic isn't enough. I have to actually know what I'm talking about. Are you learning? Every day. Last week I spent 3 hours with a Vietnam veteran who was trying to access benefits he'd been denied for 20 years. I didn't know how to help him, so I stayed after work researching regulations, called 4 different VA offices, and finally found someone who could review his case. Did you solve his problem? Not yet, but I found him an advocate who specializes in cases like his. And Dad, when he thanked me, when he said I was the first person in years who'd actually listened to his whole story. Her voice broke slightly. I finally understood what you were trying to teach me about service. We talked for an hour. Emma told me about her work, her colleagues, the veterans she was learning to help. She described the challenges, the frustrations, the moments when she felt completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of problems she was trying to address. The hardest part, she said, is realizing how much I don't know. I spent years thinking I was smart and capable, but I was just good at marketing myself. Actually being useful, actually solving problems for people, that requires humility. I never had before. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you miss your old life? The fitness business, the social media following, the focus on building your personal brand? She was quiet for a moment. Dad, I thought I would miss it. I thought I'd hate starting over, hate being the least experienced person in the office. But you know what I actually miss? What? I miss the feeling of thinking I was important, but I don't miss being that person. Does that make sense? It made perfect sense. Emma was discovering the difference between feeling important and being useful, between commanding attention and earning respect. There's something else, she said. I wanted you to know that I've been going to counseling. Oh. To understand why I treated you the way I did, why I thought I was entitled to your house, your money, your life. The counselor helped me realize that I'd been treating everyone in my life as resources to be managed rather than people to be respected. What else did you learn? That I was terrified of not being special, of being ordinary, having to work like everyone else, building something slowly instead of getting instant success. Taking your room, selling Mum's things, planning that business. Partnership. It was all about avoiding the hard work of becoming someone worth respecting. Emma had found the insight that had eluded her for 32 years. The true worth came from what you contributed, not what you could extract from others. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Go ahead. Do you think there's any chance we can rebuild our relationship? Not go back to the way things were, but build something new based on who I'm becoming, rather than who I was. I looked out my office window at the museum's memorial garden, where visitors came to reflect on sacrifice and service. In the distance, I could see the James Robert Jones Veterans Memorial Wing, where my collection had found its permanent home. Emma, I think we're already rebuilding it. Every conversation like this, every choice you make to serve others instead of yourself, every day you choose humility over entitlement, that's how relationships get rebuilt. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. After we hung up, I sat in my office thinking about the journey that had brought us to this point. Emma's betrayal, my revenge, the painful process of consequences and accountability, and finally the opportunity for redemption. I'd given Emma what I thought was the cruelest gift possible, the chance to succeed or fail entirely on her own merit. What I'd discovered was that it was actually the kindest gift I could have offered. The chance to discover what she was truly capable of when she stopped looking for shortcuts and started building something real. My daughter had lost her inheritance, her safety net, her easy path through life. In return, she'd found her integrity, her purpose, and her self-respect. The trade had been worth it for both of us. The memorial wing would preserve the stories of veterans for generations to come. Emma was learning to honor those stories through service instead of trying to profit from them. And I had found meaningful work that allowed me to continue serving long after my military career had ended. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. Sometimes it's about creating circumstances where people can choose to become their better selves. Emma had made that choice, and we were both better for it. And you? If your own child had betrayed your trust the way Emma betrayed mine, would you have chosen revenge or redemption? Would you have given them a second chance to earn back your respect, or would the hurt have been too deep to forgive? I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of accountability, forgiveness, and second chances. And click on the video that just appeared on your screen. You won't believe what happens when a son discovers his father isn't the man he thought he was. Thanks for listening to my story. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying our enemies, but from giving them the chance to become our allies.